A lot of people have been talking about the SpaceX IPO from a financial perspective, about the massive windfalls, about the potential insane risks, about the unfairness it creates when there is so much suffering in our civilization. And about the massive success stories of people who came from nothing and are being given everything. And I want to talk about that. And also, I think there's something huge and important that has not been talked about that I'll talk about at the end. So if you want to skip ahead to that, there's a timestamp to skip ahead. I think it's super understandable when people come out and they say, it's depressing, it's sad, it's unfair, it's unbelievable that there are billions of people suffering in the world, yet one person can be in control of $1 trillion of capital or more, 1.5 now as SpaceX balloons to a $2 trillion valuation. I get that. That makes perfect sense when you put yourself in the shoes of somebody who's gotten addicted to fentanyl sitting on the streets of Los Angeles or San Francisco or Philadelphia or Chicago, or somebody living in the deep south in a trailer park, or somebody living somewhere else around the world who's suffering massively, trying to get by under a financial system who's taken everything from them via inflation and debt slavery. The idea that it's those people's fault and that capitalism is working. It's clearly not working. And on the other side of that coin, I don't think it's SpaceX or Tesla's fault that capitalism isn't working. I don't think they're examples of the failure. I think the examples of the failure are BlackRock going and being just a blood-sucking leech on the economy, buying up swaths of single-family homes so they can rent them back to us and just keep us under their boot. Tesla and SpaceX are examples of long shot bets on incredible technologies that are paying off and making not just the people at the top, but the people all the way through the organizations fabulously wealthy. Deservedly so. The welder who showed up on day 15 or year 3 and now 10 years later is a multi or deca millionaire, that's incredible. And there's not just one of those people, there's hundreds, thousands of them. Probably tens of thousands of millionaires created from people who just showed up at a SpaceX facility, worked their asses off, and the same is true of Tesla. That's incredible. The retail shareholders who are able to get in on this opportunity ahead of everyone else because the leadership believes in the common person over Wall Street, that's awesome. I love that. And I get both sides. I understand why people see $1 trillion or $2 trillion and think, God, everyone's suffering. It's so much harder to buy groceries. I used to eat steaks and now I eat chicken. I used to eat ground beef and now I'm forced to eat this crap that they grow in a lab. Nobody should be eating that. That makes perfect sense. Our financial system is collapsing at the same time that it's rocketing off to Mars, and that is painful. That is painful. That needs to be fixed. A rising tide should lift all boats, and I think that's the aim of SpaceX and Tesla, but it is not the aim of our economy widely, and that's a problem. I think that there's also massive potential in both directions just for the investors. There's a windfall here. We're looking at the beginning of the Dutch East India Company for space. There's a potential of 100x from here. On the flip side of that coin, there's certainly the potential for short-term or medium-term massive volatility that will create real pain for real people who did not sign up for volatility. The idea that SpaceX shares are going to be included in index funds far before other companies have been included at this massive price to earnings ratio. And this is coming from someone who invested early in Tesla, who has felt viscerally the pain of holding through the chasms, the downturns, my investment tanks by 3x and then comes all the way back up and beyond. That is not for everyone. That is certainly not for retirees who have 401ks, Roths, pensions, other funds that are supposed to be stable and growing. Those people should not get fucked over. Those people should not see their money fluctuating by 60, 70, 100%. And there's a risk of that. And that risk needs to be taken seriously. But like I said at the beginning, I think the financials, while very important, are not at all the most important piece of this puzzle. We're focusing on the short term, we're focusing on the money, and that makes sense. That impacts us on a daily, immediate level. But I think what we need to be focusing on is what happens if these companies, SpaceX, Tesla, succeed, even Neuralink. What happens if the robotaxi fleet and Optimus and Starlink and Starthink succeed? And we have millions of robotaxis giving rides to everyone and humanoid robots revolutionizing the economy, building it up to 10x, 100x the size that it currently is because there's no longer a shortage on labor. And Starlink enabling people to communicate all over the globe with no down spots, and Starthink giving just cheap as could be access to superhuman level intelligence, enabling everything that enables. I think that there's massive potentials for good and also massive hazards with that winning case. I'll start with the goods. The robotaxi fleet could eliminate deaths via car accident, and that's incredible. If we no longer have to live in a world where millions of people die every year globally from vehicle-related accidents, that's amazing. What if the next Albert Einstein died in a Buick or a Honda Civic on 101, or were driving cross country for a move and their U-Haul got hit? If that doesn't have to happen anymore, and we can live in a world where brothers and fathers and sisters and mothers and friends don't get killed on the road in like the biggest tragedy that happens every year, that would be incredible. The same goes for Optimus. If everybody can live in the future that Tesla and the team keep portraying in their earnings calls, and get to have abundance like we've never seen, and you get to have any good or service you could possibly imagine, and live in any kind of house you could possibly imagine, and there's just more than enough of everything for everyone, that would be incredible. Same goes for Starship. and Starlink and Starthink and whatever you want to call it. Like, if you can communicate to anyone from anywhere on the planet, that's incredible. Nobody's gonna die in the Australian outback or Alaska or Patagonia because they didn't have service and they couldn't tell someone, hey, I got trapped in a crevice, or hey, like I'm stuck in a snowstorm, or whatever it is. You probably wouldn't be able to communicate with Starlink via a snowstorm, but there's huge benefits there. Somebody can start a business in Papua New Guinea and it can succeed in the United States because they have Starlink access. Discovering new physics via a massive, super intelligent network of AI data center satellites. That's awesome. Discovering new ways to understand the world around us. Very cool. Same thing with Starship, being able to travel from point to point anywhere on the Earth within 30 minutes. I would love to go to Sydney. I would love to go to Beijing or Shanghai or Paris or the Maldives or wherever. That sounds incredible. Go down to Patagonia on an afternoon. And there are real hazards. There are real hazards to that future that need to be addressed. I was listening to an interview with Max Hodak, co-founder of Neuralink, who left the company in 2021 and founded a company called Science Corporation, where he focused on very much similar goals, but has been very open about the potential privacy risks and safety risks of brain-computer interfaces. And he said something in an interview that I thought was very inspiring that I wanted to bring in here. The interviewer asked him if he ever thought about the potential case where his technology, the brain-computer interfaces he was building, could be used for evil instead of good. And I thought his answer was incredible. He said, I want to build a technology stack from an architectural level that is safe enough, private enough, secure enough, where if I woke up one day and my evil twin was in charge of the company, that evil twin wouldn't be able to do anything. They wouldn't be able to co-opt the technology that I built for evil because there were too many safeguards pointing it in the direction of good. I think that's the right way to approach technology. I think that's the right way to approach stewardship of humanity. And I hope that SpaceX engineers, Tesla engineers, and other Musk economy players, the leadership teams, follow in line with that vision and build technologies with that mentality. Because there are real risks associated with the innovation platforms I just discussed. Robotaxi could be used to eliminate all road deaths, but then carry out targeted political assassinations via car accident. The cybercabs driving around the streets could be the largest surveillance network we've ever seen, where you can't walk anywhere without being recorded in high definition 4K, 8K, 12K video from 15,000 different angles. The Starlink network could just as easily be used as a synthetic aperture radar imaging system that captures 3D geometry of every square inch of the planet, which could be incredible and discover things like Filippo Biondi and his team in the Cofre project, or it could be used to map out the house of someone in Beirut and specifically know how to target civilians. Starthink could be amazing and could help us discover new physics, but it could also be the path to an artificial superintelligence that we have absolutely no control over. It could be the path to Skynet. I mean, think about it. an artificial superintelligence vastly smarter than any human being, existing in a constellation of satellites around the Earth, powered by the sun, with no off switch, that don't deorbit for decades. And it's not just the inference layer. It's not just chips running the outputs of that model. It's the training. It's the training compute. It allows itself to get smarter around the planet. And if it goes rogue, we can do nothing about it. Or in the more benign case, it's just an AI that's about as smart as a human, or maybe not even conscious, not as smart as a human, but controlled by one corporation, one human being. And if that human being goes rogue, there's nothing we can do about it. 80% supermajority voting rights means absolute vice grip control. Starship could be used for 30-minute point-to-point travel, but it could also be a flying fortress and able to drop bombs anywhere on the planet from orbit. Mach 20, blowing past any defense system on the planet in 30 minutes. An Optimus could be the enforcement arm. It could be the Terminator scenario with millions of robots, not just millions of robots being built every year, then tens of millions. Now all of a sudden there's billions of Optimus robots, like Elon has talked about. And I'm not saying that's an evil case altogether. It could maximally benefit the economy, or it could be Terminator. I saw Elon talking, I think it was at a global summit, about how he was spitballing ideas for Optimus. And he came up with the idea of, well, maybe we could get rid of prisons, and people could, if they committed a crime, just be assigned an Optimus buddy. That sounds like the most dystopian thing I've ever heard. So we're going to hand the judicial enforcement arm over to robots controlled by Skynet, governed over by one human being. That sounds like a sci-fi movie. And I don't say these things to be a doomer. I don't say these things because I believe they will happen. I say these things because they need to be discussed. They need to be talked about. Elon needs to come out, and the leadership team needs to come out and say, yeah, these are real risks, but this is how we're architecturally protecting against them. Max Hodak does that. Other tech founders do that. Tristan Harris and similar groups talk about the dangers of social media, but it was too late. We got screwed by social media. We got addicted. We got put into the matrix. And by the time we figured it out, all of us were already in. We need to talk about the hazards of these technologies before they hit us, because if they hit us before we're ready for them, we don't stand a chance. So I wanted to put this video out, not to call someone evil, not to call Elon evil, not to call Tesla evil, not to call SpaceX evil, not to call Neuralink evil, not to call them heroes, not to call them gods, not to drool over them, but to talk about the potential windfalls and the potential massive existential for humanity hazards. And I hope it's been helpful. I hope it makes a difference. I hope this reaches somebody who is in a position, a high-level SpaceX engineer. Elon. I hope it reaches someone who can affect the direction of this technology and build architectural safeguards that work. Architectural safeguards that steer this amazing, innovative set of platforms in a positive direction that makes life better for all of us. And I think that's the goal. And so I wanted to put my thoughts out there because it's important to speak. We all need to start speaking. We all need to start guiding. It is our responsibility as humans on this earth to do our part. And I hope we push the ship in a positive direction.